All right, so get ready for this, okay? Because this story is wild. Um, it was Hurricane Milton, right? And it was barreling down on Tampa Bay and, evacuations everywhere, right?
Right.
Total chaos. And in the middle of all this, there's this guy on a sailboat. Like, he's decided that's the safest place to be.
It's kind of like one of those images that just grabs you. You know, you can't look away. The power of nature and this lone figure right in the middle of it.
Yeah, and the thing is, this isn't like some random dude. This is Lieutenant Dan. And get this, he went viral on TikTok like before the hurricane even hit.
People were totally captivated, like waiting with bated breath to see what was going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so Lieutenant Dan, his real name is Joseph Malinowski. He's 54 years old. And just like the character from Forrest Gump, he's missing part of his leg. Yeah, he lost his lower left leg in a car accident when he was 16. Now, he'd been living in Florida for about 5 years. Said he was drawn to Tampa by this like spiritual calling.
I've heard about that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it gets really interesting, right? This wasn't just some impulsive thing.
Oh.
Malinowski had actually ridden out another hurricane, Hurricane Helena, on a different boat. And Helena was way worse.
Wow. So the guy had some experience, but still, Hurricane Milton was no joke. And here's the thing that gets me. He wasn't hiding from the cameras or anything. He was giving interviews during the hurricane.
It's like he wanted everyone to see it, to be part of this whole experience. And that's key here. This wasn't just a man and his faith. It was a man putting his faith on display for the whole world to see.
And that's what I think makes this so fascinating. We're not just speculating here. We actually get to hear from the guy right in the middle of the hurricane.
Yeah.
So picture this wind howling, the boat's probably rocking back and forth, and Malinowski's just chatting with a reporter like it's no big deal.
That takes some serious composure, right? Most people would be freaking out, but he's like weirdly calm about the whole thing.
Totally. Okay, you got to hear this. This is a clip from one of those interviews.
Okay.
Just to give you a feel for it. So he's asked to describe the hurricane, and he says, "It was pretty mellow. Pretty mellow. During a hurricane, the guy's got nerves of steel."
You got to hand it to him. That's some serious chill. And that's what gets me. It's not even just that he's calm. It's what he says next when they ask him if he was scared.
Okay, yeah. There's a part where the reporter asks, "Dan, you weren't afraid at all last night." And Malinowski goes, "No, I'm not scared of anything. What I've been through with this weather is nothing. And I put my faith in God."
He says it so matter-of-factly, too. Like,
Yeah.
it's just a simple truth. And it's not just a one-time thing either. He keeps going back to that faith in God throughout the interviews.
Yeah, it's like his anchor. No
You know?
pun intended. But it makes you wonder what's going on there psychologically. What allows someone to stay so calm with all this danger swirling around them?
Right. Is it really just faith? Or maybe a bit of denial? Maybe a little of both?
Exactly. And then he talks about how he felt this like pull towards Tampa, this spiritual calling. Woke up one morning and just knew he had to move there and get a boat, which is a whole other story.
Wow. It's like this wasn't just about riding out one storm. It's his whole life guided by faith.
Right. So you've got this deeply faithful guy riding out the storm in his Noah's Ark, which is what he called his boat.
Oh.
But then he goes and tells the reporter that he had to cut his anchor line to keep from getting smashed against a wall. Said he lost a $250 anchor.
Wait, so he's putting his fate in God's hands, but also taking practical steps to stay safe. It's kind of contradictory.
That's what's so interesting about it. Where does the faith end and the pragmatism begin?
Like, is it even possible to separate the two, or are they always intertwined? Especially in a situation like this.
It's like this whole debate about faith versus reason.
Right.
And you really saw that play out in how people reacted to Malinowski's story.
Absolutely. It was like this weird mix of people being in awe of him and worried about him at the same time.
Yeah, and a lot of the worry was just plain old concern for his safety. Like there's this one interview where the reporter's talking to Malinowski, and he points out that the boat's riding super low in the water. Like it wouldn't take much for it to go under.
Right? Like, from a purely practical standpoint.
Yeah.
It's not the safest place to be.
Exactly. And the reporter even suggests that Malinowski could just get off the boat if he needed to.
Sensible advice.
Right. But Malinowski's response is pure Lieutenant Dan. This is the part that really gets me. So the reporter says, Are you going to be okay? I mean, you could just get off if something bad happened, you know what I mean? And Malinowski goes, "I'm not going anywhere. The safest place to be is on a boat in a flood." Okay, we learned that with Noah. Everybody that stayed on land drowned Noah, and the animals lived.
Wow. He went there straight to Noah's Ark.
He really did. It's like in his mind, leaving the boat would be like defying God's plan.
Yeah, that's some powerful belief right there. To risk your life based on a story from thousands of years ago, it really makes you think about the nature of faith and how it shapes our perception of risk.
Absolutely. And then just when you think he couldn't get any more, Lieutenant Dan, he says this. He goes, I'm not suicidal, but I'm putting it in God's hands.
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. Like he's acknowledging the danger, but still putting his complete trust in something beyond himself.
And that's what makes this whole story so fascinating. It's not just about one guy and a hurricane. It's about the things we choose to believe in, even when the rest of the world doesn't get it.
It's like that image of him on the boat, alone against the storm. It's both terrifying and inspiring at the same time.
Totally. And it stays with you long after the storm is gone. So yeah, Lieutenant Dan's story, it's a wild ride. And it leaves us with a lot to think about faith risk and what it really means to be human in a world that often feels totally unpredictable.